Hello and welcome to From the Top, our countdown of the highest rated games on Metacritic. My name is Michael. I'm here with Sean and Steve, and today we are looking at Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Trice.
The third.
This is a PlayStation 2 game, came out in October 2001, and it's number 15 on the list. So we're getting through them, but we're still very high up. It has a 97 on Metacritic. It's the highest rated PS2 game as well we've covered on
Is it?
Metacritic.
Oh, shit,
yeah,
wow.
which is pretty surprising, I have to say.
Which is like allegedly the best games console of all time, which allegedly would make this the best game of all time if you're not into science or math.
Wait, is that? Did we do any GTAs on PS2 yet?
No, yeah, GTA 4 was on the next
yeah,
generation,
wow.
yeah. So GTA 3 has the same Metacritic score, so we'll be getting to that soon enough. But yeah, this is the highest rated one, which is in some ways surprising, but in other ways I can see why. We'll talk a bit about why it got such a high score later on. Sold over 2 million copies, and yeah, it was generally like a really highly anticipated game. Funnily enough, I remember I was like 12 years old when this came out, and I saved up a shitload of money because I was a huge fan of Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 before this, so I knew I really wanted this game. But I'd saved up enough money that I could buy another game when I was getting Tony Hawk's 3, so I decided to buy Grand Theft Auto 3 on the same day I got Tony Hawk's 3. So I did two games, and I thought, oh cool, okay, I'm going to play the shit out of Tony Hawk's, and if I ever get bored with it, I'll play Grand Theft Auto 3. I barely touched Tony Hawk's 3 after I started playing Grand Theft Auto.
That's the thing when you buy like two games you really want or something at the same time. You're like, yeah, one of them gets.
It's never a good idea.
Nah, you instantly pick a favorite, and then
it's like buying two dinners at the same time. It's like it's just a waste, really.
Well, but you can play it eventually. The dinner will be cold. And probably moldy.
The games will be cold too. Cold as ice.
So we'll have brief musical interludes from Stephen throughout. So one thing I wanted to do, this is the last Tony Hawk's game we'll be covering for a while because we'll get into this, but the series really did go in some different directions, and arguably this is the pinnacle of the quality.
Tony made his money, basically.
Tony did definitely.
He was like, lads, I'm dipping.
And people still don't know what he looks like. It's amazing.
Yeah, no one can recognize him out in public. If anyone hasn't seen, there's like a billion tweets of Tony Hawk at the airport, and they're like, you look like Tony Hawk, but you're obviously not Tony Hawk. He's like,
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, no, you should look him up. So since we aren't going to cover a lot more of the series, and it went in some very different directions. They got really involved with the Jackass guys for a while for some reason, because it was popular at the same time, and started introducing some very wacky challenges. So normally it's like, you know, in the older Tony Hawk's games, it's like grind on this rail or jump over this car or something. But then it started to get a bit more just, you know, 2000s humor, basically. So since Sean isn't as familiar with the series, I thought it'd be a fun game, a little bit of fun between friends, if I quizzed Sean on what he thinks was in the next few Tony Hawk's games, particularly the underground games.
Let's go.
Buckle up, Sean.
I'm ready for it.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to present you with two options, and you have to tell me which one was actually a challenge in a Tony Hawk's game.
Okay,
right?
cool.
So I'm going to
Can you? Are you allowed to tell me the game you're referencing?
Sean's got to know all these rules and all like that. Like.
But because you said, oh no, okay, it doesn't matter. Go on.
Most of these are from Underground or Underground 2.
Okay.
I think there might be one from American Wasteland or whatever that one was called as well. So here's the first one. Here's your two options, right?
Cool.
Which one of these was actually in a Tony Hawk's game? Number one, stop kids from smoking by destroying tobacco dispensers around the level. Or two, grind on some rails so you can ignite a gasoline trail that burns an effigy of Saddam Hussein.
Fucking hell. I mean, you got me at the end there. So I was like, it's got to be number two, though, because we had like Invasion of Iraq And also, why would they want kids to stop smoking? Because isn't that like?
So you think the second one was in a Tony Hawk's game?
Am I wrong?
That was a softball I threw you, Sean. Of course you're not going to burn an effigy of Saddam Hussein in a video game.
Well, I mean, America was pretty anti-Iraq around that time.
Okay,
so.
this game is going to go in a
This is the
completely
first
different
I've heard of. When did this happen? Was this a niche thing?
I mean, no, I thought, okay, the first one, I was thinking that makes a lot of sense. But then the no smoking, I thought, like, you don't think they'd
promote no smoking. Yeah, that is a pretty
because
square
it was kind of like a
sort
cool
of
thing everyone did back then and stuff. So
Yeah. We do know Tony Hawk's games promote smoking a lot.
okay,
you
shit, got the first one wrong. God damn it! I
Okay,
mean,
that's-
Saddam Hussein did throw me a bit, but I thought, like, yeah, he's not a nice guy, so maybe
That's what George W. Bush said, I think.
he's like, we have to invade.
Okay, cool. So just getting into the game itself, we've covered Tony Hawk's 2 and mechanically...
It's probably not going to be that different, is it? Like, I mean, well, I played it a little bit, and Michael, you played it a fair bit growing up, but it's not that different, really.
It is and it isn't, and it mostly isn't that different, really. They did include, so the two biggest changes for me anyway, this was a generation leap, so they moved from the PlayStation 1 onto the PS2. So obviously there was a graphics upgrade, not a crazy
Not
graphics
huge,
upgrade.
but it was there.
Yeah, it looks up
Could you
its
see their
time.
ears? I'm trying to remember because you see their ears, actually.
Ear graphics, man, that's what we're all about.
Ear
yeah.
graphics were very big on ear graphics. Yeah, I think you could. I think they'd incorporated ear graphics at that stage.
Finally had ears, maybe not individual fingers. They hadn't got that far yet, but they had ears. But one thing they did, the technology allowed was for bigger levels. So you'll find as we go through the game that they introduce a lot more scope to the levels, a lot more challenges and verticality to the levels. I think some of them are really well designed in this game. For me personally, once they went beyond this game, they got too big and like to the point where they weren't fun anymore. Because like, I don't know about you, but one of my biggest annoyances in this game was grinding up some like in the scaffolding above a level or something like that and then falling down to the bottom and like there's no...
That was a whole thing in Underground 2. I remember it pissed me off so much. Yeah.
And I think once they got to the point where they were like semi-open world in like, I think Underground and American Wasteland and stuff like that, it stopped being a fun Tony Hawk's game. And it's almost like the thing that happened to Jak 2, where it was like you almost forgot why these games were good. You're just trying to be Grand Theft Auto again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
It sort of ruined games, Grand Theft Auto, really. I'm glad we don't have to cover any more of them until Grand Theft Auto 3. Another thing they introduced, which was really cool in the mechanic side of things, is they added reverts. I don't think I said it right either way, if I'm being honest. But these were so sort of ground-based tricks that you could do, or what I should say is it's a way to transition from being on like a half pipe or a ramp or something and then into a manual, which means you can sort of do a trick along the ground and then into a rail. So what this basically meant was you could string together a lot more tricks and make some like pretty fucking ludicrous combos at some point.
Can I and my sweater vest interject for a second here now, because I have always been a little unsure on this. Is revert the thing where you turn your skateboard around?
No, it's more like a little trick you can do on the lip of like a ramp or something that'll transition you into a manual. And I think a manual is stuff you can do along the ground, basically. So
I'm going to
like,
have to look up a GIF of this now, just because I've never really understood what a revert
can I
was.
throw you over to our fact checker, Sean?
Yeah, no, I think you're thinking of inverts, which is that's when you say like you do an ollie, but like backwards and stuff like that. So yeah, that's what you were talking about, I think. But yeah, I thought that's what you meant originally as well, Michael. But yeah,
Okay.
so,
Well,
you're talking about a transitional trick.
yeah, exactly. Something that can bridge the gap between like the air-based tricks and the ground and rail-based tricks.
Yeah.
Basically.
So I'm looking up a GIF of this, and one of the first things that came up was a GIF of a ship kind of like on like a dock, but then it's sliding slowly into the sea, and it just crashes into it, and it's just like revert ! Exclamation mark underneath it, and I'm like, I still don't get what reverts are.
This GIF isn't very explanatory at all.
Actually, hold on. I think I was
the next
wrong.
one makes sense. Okay.
I was wrong about inverts. Actually, that's a specific trick. Let me.
It's that thing where you kind of lean on the edge of a skateboard, like so, like you're kind of balancing on two wheels and going along. That's what it is, isn't it?
No, that's a manual. God,
lads, you tell we weren't fucking skateboarders. Back
yeah,
in the
I was
day
about to
anyway.
say none of us fucking spent any time. Sean was a BMXer. That was the only fucking extreme
Yeah,
sports.
broke my arm, not even doing a trick. So there you go.
What is a revert? Oh, it's a return to a previous state.
There we go. That's it.
Oh, apparently it's a person who is converted to the Islamic faith. Well, that settles everything.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing that Neversoft added to this. You could either become a Christian, you could become Jewish, or you could become a Muslim.
Yeah, the religion options in like Pro Skater 3 were amazing. I have found the actual thing now. I think I was right. It is quickly turning 180 degrees on a skateboard. It's called a revert.
I think I was thinking of fakie. That's when you do stuff back, like rolling backwards. But anyway.
Anyway,
reverts can be done front side, back side, or fakie. So no, I think you're all right. Cool.
okay,
Glad we cleared that up.
Skateboarding for beginners.
Yeah,
I don't think we cleared anything.
Yeah,
up.
listen.
I'm more confused than when we started this.
I just can't wait till we get to the next skating term that we don't understand and we go down a fucking dictionary, Wikipedia.
Anyway, this game, this fucking game, Tony Hawk.
Damn it!
Who'd have knew?
Did we really need a third Tony Hawks? Sorry. No, only joke. I was actually, just to get back on point about the manuals.
Oh, thanks,
and stuff
Sean.
like
Yeah,
that.
fucking.
No, but because
Where would we be without you, Sean?
during the research and stuff, and I read up that they introduced that in this game. I was really surprised that it's like just something as simple as a manual wasn't in the first games. Because I guess I've only played the remakes extensively of 1 and 2, and they added all that stuff into that, I guess, to make it more modern and up to date.
Yeah, no, I think manuals were in 2, as far as I know.
But so you could string together combos. So but you're saying that's a new thing in 3?
Do you know what? I'm going to cut all this out.
No, come on. This is
good.
gold. Okay, keep it all in. This is
want to
what
know.
This is what the people want to hear,
The
man.
people-
They are finding out about the game at the same time we are.
People are too afraid to say they don't understand half the shit going on in skateboarding games.
Exactly.
We're here to lay it on the line.
There's no stupid questions here.
No,
Okay.
none at all.
So
Yeah.
basically, it's a wooden board around this length, has 4 wheels generally.
No, do you know what? I'm just gonna see. Did Tony Hawk's 2 have manual? Tony Hawk's 2 have.
Why
manual.
research beforehand when you can do it mid podcast? I mean,
Man,
these
but it adds so much to the fun of it.
Guys,
you know what
I
mean?
was 100% right. I'm just after looking it up, okay? Sorry to sort of put my teacher voice on, okay? Tony Hawk's 3 saw the introduction of the revert, a trick that enabled vert combos to be tied together with a manual by tapping a button when landing on a quarter pipe.
What's the name of the website you're looking at down there?
Oh, so
It's called wikipedia.org.
Oh, well, then it
wait.
must be true.
So wait, I wonder, is it literally just the transitional element that wasn't in? Like maybe
Yes.
you could do a manual in 1 and 2,
Yes.
but you couldn't transition into one.
Yes, yeah.
So unimportant.
No,
It's
this
so
is
unimportant.
it's actually crucial, Steve. Okay, because we're trying to differentiate here between Tony Hawk's 1, Tony Hawk's 2, Tony Hawk's 3, and
What
however
if we
many
all
other Tony
actually
Hawks.
played the wrong game? We all played Tony Hawk's 2 and we didn't realize it, like, because you wouldn't know.
I played fucking Guitaru Man by accident, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Kutaru, man.
Guitaru Man.
What's that?
It's a
Guitaro, man.
yeah, it's about a talking guitar.
Really?
We had a whole like video about it. I'm glad to see this podcast is like staying on track as well as it usually does. Happy days for us, eh?
Listen, we said tangents are welcome, so
We did.
Tangents are always welcome here, guys.
we gotta fill this out somehow. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, because we don't know what we're talking. Was this the first game to introduce like the create a player actually? Because I don't remember. No, what am I talking about? I even talked about that in the last one. Never mind.
You said you made a Shrek, and it was like, oh, Shrek's not in the game.
To be fair to us, lads, all these games are really similar, so it's like very easy to get the elements
I would
mixed up.
say generally, it depends who you ask, but Tony Hawk's 3 is seen as like the pinnacle of the series. in a lot of ways because obviously it still had that old school sort of you're just going around doing these like challenges and they weren't as involved. And like one thing you'll see it creeping into this game, but they introduce way more story elements into the other ones as well. Like, and there's a narrative going through, and like you're like a skater coming up from the ranks and like being in these competitions, and it's like no one's playing a Tony Hawk's game for the fucking lore.
From what I learned, this game was like kind of on the brink before the series declined into all that like more like stupid like jackass stuff and more story based things that weren't really necessary in the game. And they also just took what worked in 1 and 2, refined it really well, and here you go, here's a great arcade skateboarding game.
Speaking of introducing all those silly elements, let me ask you another question.
Let's go for it.
Great transition, Michael.
We're doing so well here.
That was bang on. Man, well done. That was brilliant.
Round Bula Bus. Okay, Sean, which of these challenges were in a Tony Hawk's game? Okay. Number 1, to find and release a skateboarding Benjamin Franklin. Or number 2, oh God, I'm not going to pronounce any of these words. Kickflip off a sarcophagus and release mummies from a crypt.
I think I know the answer to this one, but I'm not sure.
Man, it's so hard now. Like, so the first one was to release a Benjamin Franklin.
Find and release a skateboarding Benjamin Franklin.
I'm gonna go with 2.
You think 2 was in the game? Yeah, you're wrong again.
What?
Yeah, you find and release a skateboarding Benjamin Franklin in Underground 2.
What? How is that okay? But Saddam Hussein. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's an impersonator. I mean, I think so. I think I saw that bit. I think that was, I think I played that bit.
Sorry, I should have said he could be an impersonator. I didn't get that far into the lore of the game. I'm sorry.
We need your man. What's your man who does all the Dark Souls videos? Begins with a V, Vita, you know the one?
Vita Vidya or something like that.
Vita Vidya to do the lore of like all the Tony Hawk's games.
In
the skateboard
2003.
Darkness. What was I going to say there? Fuck. I had something, but then it's gone. Go ahead.
So one thing I really like the level design on this game, and like I'd like to just like briefly run you through some of the better examples. I think it has a fantastic opening level in a lot of ways. If you think about it, a lot of people so the opening level is Foundry, and it's one of the smaller maps on the game. But it has
kind of a traditional thing, isn't it? Like they always do like a factory or something very kind of blank without too much personality to kind of teach you the basics of the game.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Game, don't they?
Yeah. It's a nice introduction before they open out into the more colourful and sort of sprawling levels. Foundry is sort of, it's compact in a lot of ways, but it has a lot of verticality. So it isn't too overwhelming for players, because like people would be coming from Tony Hawk's 2 into this and they wouldn't have played any games that had these sprawling skate levels in it. So it had all its challenges sort of in a nice compact area, but it had these railings above, so it did still have quite a challenge to get up there and grind along those rails and stuff, but it was small enough that people wouldn't get overwhelmed, and was a really good introduction to like the way levels would change as well. So one thing that's common across all the levels in the game is that they have, it's almost like Levolution from Battlefield or something. They have elements that can change the level within them. So in the LA level, you can grind on some rails to make an earthquake, and that'll collapse the freeway, and then you can grind along the freeway and do some other things, which is really cool. The Foundry
I don't understand the physics of that at all.
Yeah, I know. It's sort of like
how does grinding on rails cause earthquakes?
That's what started the fucking fire of 1902 in LA. Apparently, some just dude doing a kickflip somewhere he shouldn't have.
Releasing Saddam Hussein, who was a pyromaniac at the
time. And the Foundry has these as well. Like they're a lot smaller. I think like some bucket, like with molten lava, goes across the level, and different things move around. But it's a lot more smaller scale, and sort of it does a good job of like gently getting the player used to all these things, and like it's a pretty fun like skate level as well. And it doesn't have as much of the humor that goes throughout the rest of the levels. I would hesitate to say I ever laughed during a Tony Hawk's game at any of the jokes or humor, but it does like, it's like it's a nice tone it has, like guys falling over or shit like that generally seems to be. It's a bit Laurel and Hardy.
That's pretty much all you need. That's the peak of your humor. Yeah, it's like a guy falling over. Comedy gold.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at a picture now. There's a Canada level? Is there?
Canada is the next level, and so that's a great second level because it's a lot more open and has almost like different biomes within it. So it has like a car park / skate park with lots of rails and stuff in it, and it's like probably one of my favorite just pure skate park areas in any of the levels. But it also has these woods, and the woods are they haven't aged well. The tree graphics aren't exemplary in this game, and I found it quite confusing to go around because do you remember from like back in the PS2 era, whenever they wanted leaves in a game, they just have like one texture for all the leaves, and it's just like a JPEG, like basically a 2D image, and that'd often like obscure your view and stuff like that. So getting around the trees was a bit awkward, but as a level itself, it was all tied together really well. And
also continues the tradition of like, high class humor. I'm looking at a picture of it right now, and there is a man standing on a wall peeing into the sea.
Yep, that's sort of it's so weird that this generally became more apparent as the games came on as well, and like the whole tying everything into Jackass was. You can see why they made that connection. Like the Jackass guys came from the skating community. Like Bam Margera was a skater, and he was in some of the games as well. And in the music, we'll see that reflected as well. But one other thing about Canada is that it introduced some of the quasi-story elements, I guess, into the game. So there's not really an overarching narrative in this one like there is in some of the later games, but it has a little bit of like sort of small vignettes, I guess, throughout, like little short stories within the level. So like it's very simple stuff. So at the beginning of the level, you see some bullies. I think they're throwing snowballs at a kid. And you can grind on a rail to like drop a load of snow on the bullies, which is it's all like, Saturday morning TV sort of stuff, like kids.
And that's homicide as well, I think, because they die after that.
Yeah, you do. Like the next level's actually at their funeral, and you can grind on their coffin as well. So generally the game like flips between two different modes. It either has these sort of competition levels where like Rio or Skater Island it was another one
classic, where
it's like just a skate park basically. There's not like any of these like real world elements in it like cars or anything like that. It flips between those sort of levels and the sort of real world ones like LA and the airport where you can go around and there's different things to interact with, and the fun of it is, I'm in a real world place. There's cars driving by, there's people there. I can interact with like famous landmarks and stuff like that.
I should probably let be known here now that like so Michael obviously has played this a lot like in his childhood. I couldn't get my hands on a copy, but a friend of mine was able to get it. So I went over to his place and we literally played it for about 5 hours while drinking quite heavily. So that's pretty much my entire experience of it. I will say, like, put my hands up now, because I only played it for 5 hours. I don't have as complete an idea of it. I have what I like to call a Sean view of the game.
Shots fired. There's going to come a time, Steve, where there's a game on this podcast that you've no clue about, and I am the expert. Okay, just remember. The
evil within is a good bit down the line, man.
Shut the fuck up. Remember this time.
Yeah, you'll rue the day you cross Sean Moore.
Surely I will. But I should say that, like, even though I only played it for a little bit, I have to admit, like, I wasn't as enamored with this one as I was with the second one. Now, it might just be because I only played it for a bit. I didn't spend that much time with it, and all that. I don't know. It didn't gel with me as much, I have to say. But I do think I kind of shot myself in the foot a little bit, because in making my own character, I deliberately made the shortest character I possibly could. He was 4 feet tall. His name was Billy Bollock, and unfortunately, what I didn't realize, and we didn't realize this until about 2 or 3 levels in, if you're short, like if you make a particularly short character, it affects your jumping ability. So that made the game way harder. Like, so we actually couldn't finish the game, and we got all the way to the last level, which is Tokyo, and we just couldn't finish it, so we just left it there, which is what I call a Michael playthrough.
So Tony,
see, more shots fired. It's not just you, Sean. Michael gets some
that makes me feel better. Yeah, put us all down.
that one was so subtly introduced there. I almost didn't realize I'd just gotten owned. What would we call a Steve then? Fucking
a
being
Donkey Konga
well
playthrough.
researched or
I
fucking.
don't know. We'll think about that one.
No, Steve, that doesn't count as a Donkey Konga reference. Okay.
Okay.
That was
Yeah,
too
that was-
blunt.
Hey, man.
You can't
Okay,
just
fair
say the
enough.
name of the game. Okay. You have to. It has to be interwoven into the fabric of the podcast.
Yeah, I'm not a one-trick pony. Okay, there's other games that I like as well.
So, well, here's a good segue. Music in the game. These games always had amazing soundtracks, and you can sort of tell that they had a lot more of a budget for this one because some of the names are like pretty big that they have in it. So really,
Ace of Spades, like.
Ace of Spades, that was sort of the theme song for the game. Like, it was in all the trailers and all, and like it was. I think this embarrassing. Well, I was 12, but embarrassingly enough, this is the first time I ever heard Ace of Spades was in Tony Hawk's.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of great songs, probably video games, were what like exposed them to me.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Fucking Vice City
Yeah.
introduced me to like so much 80s music. Like, I never would have heard Luther Vandross apart from like
exactly,
in that
yeah.
game. And I thank Vice City for that, to be honest.
Yeah.
So many bangers in this soundtrack, like rock classics like Ace of Spades, Blitzkrieg Bop by the Ramones. Some newer rock tracks, so CKY's 96 Quite Bitter
Yes.
Beings, which was like the soundtrack of being a teenager in my
Yeah,
time.
I love that song. It's so, like, I think, even though I actually prefer the second game soundtrack to this one, but 96 Quite Bitter Beings is one of my favorite songs of all time. So, like, yeah, I'm kind of torn on which I prefer, just on the basis of that song being in this one.
Yeah, it does have some cool highlights. Some hip hop as well, because that's the cool thing about, like, I guess, skater culture and the sort of music around it is like they were as equally into hip hop as they were into like pop punk or like classic rock, and they reflect it quite well. So you have some House of Pain and some Exhibit in this one.
Sick.
The funny thing about the Exhibit song is, you should all go listen to it because it's not like an Exhibit banger where he's all like, yeah, tear the roof off this place. Yeah, let's get down. It's fucking Exhibit time, which is one of his catchphrases.
It's fucking exhibit time.
He says it when you're going into the auction house, man. That was
This
a
is
good
funny
joke.
on two levels, because I don't even know who the fuck Exhibit is. So,
Oh
like,
man,
it
what?
means
How do you
nothing
not
to
know
me.
X to the Z, man?
Pimp my ride. Pimp my ride.
Yeah, come on, pimp my ride.
I mean, I never really watched it, so.
Man, why are we doing a podcast with this?
I
You
have
pulled
no
a Steve
idea,
on
man.
it.
Yeah, he put a Steve.
Classic Steve.
What does that even mean?
It is whatever you're doing at any one given time. But the Exhibit song isn't one of his like fucking.
What's the name of it?
I can't remember the name of the song. I
Hold
should
on a
look.
second.
Yeah, fact checker
Fact
over
checker here,
But
hold on.
it's one of his like more laid back, serious songs about like being from the streets and the toughness of growing up there and stuff like that. It's like his Gangster's Paradise,
Really?
and it sort of doesn't suit the tone of the game.
Paparazzi. That's the name of the song.
Paparazzi, yeah, just like about how hard it is and stuff like that. It's so atypical, and like you think if Exhibit in, just do a fun Exhibit song. Like every other song he has would probably suit it better. So yeah, the soundtrack is very of the time and sort of is a really good snapshot of these years and what like young people or particularly within the skating community would listen to. I don't think there's been a better. The only soundtrack I'd say that's a better time capsule of the time is Donkey Konga. There you go. That's how you fucking transition into it.
You can't do it though. It has to be Steve.
No, sorry. Usurped.
Anyway, so ask Sean there another question there. Then I want to tell you a little story actually that you just reminded me of.
Story time. Okay.
Let's go.
Here's another one for you. So, which one of these challenges occurred in a Tony Hawk's game?
Okay.
Number 1, use the Mona Lisa to grind a rail in Paris.
So you're skating the Mona.
There's no follow-up questions. There's zero follow-up questions. There's a yes or a no on this, okay?
What?
Number
Okay.
1, use the Mona Lisa to grind a rail in Paris. Number 2, destroy a hotel in a parody of the film Fight Club called Skate Club.
No follow-up questions at all.
Zero follow-up questions, man. That's all the information you need.
Can you just say number 2 to me once more?
Destroy a hotel in a parody of Fight Club called Skate Club. Tick tock, tick tock.
I'm going to go number 2.
I'd say number 1.
You're correct, Sean.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh.
you finally got one. So that's one to Sean.
There you go.
Because I was thinking like, yeah, skating on, like, so the Mona Lisa is the skateboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that would be
I
that's
thought
a
you
bit
meant-
far fetched, but burning Saddam Hussein is 100%.
I thought it was actually as someone dressed as the Mona Lisa you're skateboarding as. Like, follow-up questions would have been nice.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Tell us your story, Steve.
So just as you were saying there about like, you know, a time capsule for skating culture, like I remember before I skated for my entire, obviously I didn't skate very much. What's a revert? I was really into like skating as an idea when I was a kid, like, cause you know, I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all that jazz. I was into that kind of thing. So one time when I was about, I'm going to guess about 5, maybe 6 years old, I was in London, where you guys are. London town. And I was in this kind of big kind of amusement park kind of area, you know, where it's like kind of half inside, half outside. They've got like arcade machines, they've got like amusement park rides.
Yeah.
I want to compare it to something like Mosney, but only people of a certain generation are going to understand that. So I was there and I only vaguely remember this, like, but like one thing I do remember is seeing this massive, really cool skate park. And like I had like, you know, strobe lights and like big purple and like green neon like paint, spray paint and shit all over the place. Like, that looks awesome. I want to go up there. And in my head I was kind of like, it'll be like a slide, it'll be easy. So I went into the line and like I just like walked away from my parents. Now I just went up to the line and like stayed on this line and kind of thinking in my head, this is going to be like a slide the entire way. And then I got to the very top and some guy who was just standing there hands me a skateboard and he says, there you go. And I just looked up at him. And like I'm on the lip of this giant, like, you know, quarter pipe or half pipe or whatever, and I just burst out crying on the top of that thing.
Oh man.
So like it's just, if you can imagine, right, a bunch of skaters all about like 16, 17 years old, and this tiny kid has been waiting in line to get to the top, gets a skateboard, looks up at the guy who handed it to him, looks down at that quarter pipe, bursts into tears, and I just stood there. And your man, I say the man, right? He was probably like 15 or something like that, working there, just looking at what the fuck do I do? And eventually my mum looked up and saw me standing about 10 feet off the ground crying my eyes out on top of a skate park. She just ran up and grabbed me there. So yeah.
Oh man.
I can't imagine what those
hell.
fucking stoners in the line were thinking. They're just like, there's like a 5-year-old.
This kid's going to shred. He's either going to be dead.
I want to see what the little guy does.
Yeah.
Stand back.
This is the one. This is the guy who's going to like release Benjamin Franklin from his cage. He's going to do it, man. He's going to do it.
Oh God.
Yeah.
So yeah, you Tony Hawk's Tree, I guess. You continue on through it. You have the airport level. So for you that haven't played it, there's certain levels throughout the series are like sort of one way. So you're going downhill all the time. So you can't really go backwards on the level, and you keep going down. And so the airport level's pretty cool for that, because you can grind on like the escalators and go through metal detectors and all. It's a pretty good team for like a skating level. But generally, these levels weren't as fun because, like, once you grind on a rail, you can't get back to that rail, and if you miss a challenge, then you can't do it. It's its own like sort of difficulty, I guess. But
Also, that wasn't something new to 3, though, was it? Because I think 2 had some of
I think 2 had
levels
some
like
of
that.
it. Throughout the series, they've had these levels. But bizarrely, I can't remember what console it came out. I think it might have been the Wii. They decided to make a Tony Hawk's game that was all these levels. It was
Really?
called something like Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam or
Oh, yeah, you're
something
right.
like that.
Shit, and it was all that.
It was all the downhill
That's
levels,
crazy.
basically. I get, like, on the Wii, people were just figuring shit out, you know, like, we just got to throw something on this. And that's probably brings us to what were some of the worst Tony Hawk's games were the ones where they had, like, a peripheral skateboard, like a plastic
Yeah.
skateboard. I think they were called Ride.
Oh, yeah, maybe
Yeah.
you're right.
Wasn't there like a DS one that was like all about like you just again, I think it was all I think it was a downhill jam kind of one where you just had to balance. The whole point of the game was just using the stylus to balance your character, and you didn't do any tricks, something like that.
They really forgot what made these games good after a while, I have to say.
Yeah, it's mad how long they went on as well, because there was so many of them. Like, I don't even, like, I can't pull a number out of my head, but definitely 10 or more, I'd say.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
And it wasn't really until skate came along and then kind of brought everyone back to, you know, this is what a skateboarding game should be about, that they kind of stopped then, because I think they tried to get into the skate market with like some more serious ones, but by that point it was too late.
Yeah, and they weren't, by that point, Neversoft weren't developing the games anymore as well. So I think the Underground games were the last ones they did. But it definitely, they lost their way. They got high in their own success and just started adding more bullshit to the games.
And there was nothing to challenge them, is the thing as well, until Skate came along, because there was no other skating like franchise really, I guess.
There was a lot of competitors, but most of them diversified into different sorts of extreme sports. So like on the PS2 especially, you had so many, like we mentioned them in the last one, like you had fucking Matt Hoffman, BMX XXX, and
Shaun
Kelly
White.
Slater as well, the fucking surfing game, which is apparently all right as a game. But yeah, it got saturated at a point. This, like we said before, this does seem like the high point of the series in lots of ways, but you can see the little more insidious, the elements, the crappy humor and the weird challenges sort of being introduced as they went along.
Yeah.
Speaking of challenges, let me throw you out
Let's
another
go
one.
for
I've got
it.
a few more to get through, so I want to I want to make sure you hear all these.
Give me a quick fire if you want, 2 or 3. How many have you got?
I've got another 3, so I'll give you
Okay,
2,
give me
and then we'll
2.
save one more for the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before the big question.
Here's 2. Okay. So which one of these is a challenge in a Tony Hawk's game? Number 1, use some paint to draw a massive penis on the side of a bridge. Or number 2, have your skateboard stolen by Bigfoot.
Fucking follow-ups. 2.
You got it again, man. It's
Nice.
it's 2-2 now.
I was thinking the penis would be a bit too crass, even for that kind of, for a kid's game.
They've
you know?
definitely done penis humor at some point. in
Maybe,
these games.
maybe tongue in cheek, but like to actually draw a penis, that's going to like put the ring.
Oh, they wouldn't draw it like in someone's cheeks now, like I'd say.
Your voice got very low and seductive towards the end of that sense. I didn't like that at all.
But how, can I ask a follow up?
Yeah.
How do you get it back from him, Bigfoot?
You have to find Bigfoot.
But on your
No, he stole like some rocket powered skateboard.
Oh, so it's not the one you're on, right?
in the story. I can't believe I'm explaining this. Okay, here's another one. Which of these happened in the Tony Hawk's game? Number 1, use a ramp to jump over a lady giving birth. Number 2, scare a construction worker into swinging a huge statue of a koala head into a wall.
2.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, come on.
There you
First,
go.
pregnant woman giving birth.
It's sort of hard to come up with like reasonable ones that
Fair play though, because like these fake ones are good though. Like they're very inventive. Anyway, I'll give you that.
I just, after looking online, I didn't realize that you can unlock Darth Maul as a secret character in this game.
Sick.
and
Again-
Wolverine, I think, as well.
Very much like, you know, as you were saying, it's actually you hit the nail on the head there, this being a time capsule for the times, because Darth Maul is very much representative of that 2001 kind of what's cool.
Yeah, very much of the time. So it's sort of that those elements don't age as well, and some of the humor doesn't age as well, as we said. But again, the mechanics, like just to bring it back for anyone who thinks we're ragging on the game or anything, this is still a Tony Hawk's game from like the golden era of the Tony Hawk's games. It still plays really well.
Really well. Ooh.
Like just to round out the talking about the levels, the LA map is probably one of my favorites, and that's the one I mentioned where when you grind under rails, there's a freeway that can collapse and you can grind up along that. There's a road with cars going along, and there's actually a car chase happening that you can interrupt by dropping a sign on one of the vehicles. Really dynamic level. But again, the scope, because it was on a PS2, wasn't so huge that it would ever get overwhelming. And that's like really important. That's where I think the series really went wrong. I really wanted these sort of enclosed levels that you could really get familiar with quite quickly. And then the last level is Tokyo, which is like just a skate park, but probably one of the most fun skate parks in the game, and really cool visual design as well. Steve's been to Tokyo, so I don't know if everything is covered in neon like it is in that level. He can probably speak to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stephen taught us the Japanese word for testicles. Could you repeat that, Steve?
The Japanese word for testicles is kintama.
Man, you should do those pronunciation videos on YouTube because that was really cool.
What was the one that he's like, this is how you say Justin Bieber, Ghibli blah blue, or something like that.
Ghibli. Actually, side note on, did you know that Ghibli actually means, it's not Japanese, I think it's Slovakian, and it means like the divine wind. And the reason that they picked that name was because Miyazaki Hayao, quote, wanted his films to be a divine wind that blew through the animation industry.
Do you know, I thought you were going to go and say a fart joke there. That
I mean,
probably speaks
but why-
more to my humour than anything else.
But why did he pick a Slovakian word for it?
Or maybe it wasn't Slovakian. Like, it was I knew it wasn't Japanese. That's all I knew. Like, I don't know
Ghibli,
where.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Ghibli, Ghibli.
Ghibli.
French?
Say it enough times and it becomes French. Really. So before I ask you the final Tony Hawk's challenge question, I might just get everyone's opinions on the general question of the podcast that we ask. Does this game deserve its place on the list? I know you guys aren't as familiar with the game as I might be, but it's at number 15, the highest ranking PS2 game. Where does that sit with you, basically?
Sorry, it was Italian. It wasn't Slovakian.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I guess like it was a refinement of what came before and stuff. It seems a bit weird to have two Tony Hawk's games this far up the list, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably just like pick one of them, lads. So yeah, I don't know. Like I can't really comment too much on it because I think there should really just be one of them. I know Tony Hawk's 2 is like the second, is number 2 on the list. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is,
So
yeah.
like there is a bit of a gap there, but yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to comment on whether it deserves its place.
Fair.
I'd be like leaning towards no, but without playing it, I can't really give a definitive answer.
Okay. What about you, Steve?
I can see where you're coming from, Sean. Like, my instinct, my reaction to this is actually like, I don't get it. Like, why is it so high? The thing is, I don't like love this game. Like, I only played it for like 5 hours and I was kind of like, yeah, it's fine. But the thing that I'm kind of coming back to is there weren't really any problems with. Like, nothing stuck out to me as being like, well, that's weird, that's awkward. Like, there was no problems with the game. So like, you know, it's not a game that I'm like, fuck yeah, this is amazing. But like, you know, it plays so well that like it makes it look easy.
It's just
is
a very
kinda what I'm
good
saying.
game. Yeah.
It's just a very good game. Like, I'd say it's almost impossible to hate, very easy to like, but equally quite hard to love, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Beautifully
So
said.
I don't think anyone would hate it. I don't know anyone who would absolutely love it, but I'd say it would be a very difficult game to dislike.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a good game. So I think it's probably fine where it is. Like, I mean, I wouldn't put it any higher. I probably wouldn't put it any lower. I think it's fine as is. Probably earns its place, I'd say.
Nice neutral answer there. For me personally, it's always going to be slightly tainted by the Grand Theft Auto 3 thing that I was saying earlier, that it always sort of reflected worse on this game. I do think it's better than that for me personally. Not sure if I put it any higher because, like we were saying, it's really, really good and not a lot to fault, but you can see some of the elements that they're introducing that eventually became worse. So its influence is probably more negative than positive, I would say, personally.
Do you think that 2 is a better game than this?
It's there's not a lot between them. Probably yes, because it's more of a pure skating experience and didn't introduce some of these sillier elements into it. I do think the reverse thing that we talked over a while ago extensively was really cool and a nice addition. But like you were saying when you're talking about the remakes, it's not something you especially miss from the old ones. It wasn't like, oh God, I wish I could string this combo together longer. I think those levels were designed so you could string pretty long combos together anyway. So no, altogether, for me the real sticking point is that it's the highest rated PS2 game. Personally, I would put like Metal Gear Solid 3 higher than this game any day of the week. Grand Theft Auto 3 as well. I think they have the same Metacritic score.
I mean, I wouldn't get too like bogged down on platform though, because like, you know,
Fair.
a game from the same era could just have a higher rating on a different console.
That's true,
you know.
but I think
this is what
it scores.
This comes back to what I was saying before, man. Because like this is a game that, like I said, it's very, very easy to like. Like this is like hitting the most common denominator ever. Like everybody would play this game and say, yeah, it's pretty good. But a game like you're talking about, like, you know, Metal Gear Solid 3, sure, tons of people are be obsessed with it, but there'd be quite a few people probably who wouldn't like it as well.
That's
you know what I mean?
I think I'd prefer personally a game that takes risks and does some interesting things and doesn't get them right, rather than like Tony Hawk's 3, which is like just an upgrade. On the
Yeah, but
previous
we're
one.
on Metacritic where everything is just like collated into like averages. So like it makes sense. Like it really does make sense that this would be as high, because like it's a perfectly serviceable game. There's very few things about it you could point to and say this is bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess we have to take into account the place the reviewers were in at the time when this was released. Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 were like a phenomenon, and they were excellent games. So the third one comes out, it's a really good game. It's the first one on the PS2. It's going to score high regardless, almost.
Can I ask one question, actually? Just like, this is mainly for Michael, just because you've played it now. But like, let's say, for example, you had a person in a room and you had 3 TVs, a PlayStation 1, a PlayStation 2, and a PlayStation 4, right? Tony Hawk's 2, Tony Hawk's 3, or the remake of Tony Hawk's 1 and 2. And they could only play one of those games and they could never play the others. Which would you recommend?
The remakes.
He asked me, Sean, is your name Michael, is it? Wow. Yeah, like I think the quality of life changes, and just like the graphical upgrade would probably point me towards the remakes. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And between 2 and 3?
Probably 2. Yeah, probably 2.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I really liked 3. I do think, and like it's definitely got some great highs, but yeah, 2 just sort of nailed the formula. It's a fantastic sequel. It's really good.
I wonder if we didn't even talk about the fact this is one of the very first games that used like the online function on PS2.
But
like,
who played online on the PS2 I was living in the back arse of nowhere, so I could barely download
literally
one JPEG.
Nobody in Ireland ever, no one in Ireland ever used like that. I think the only time I ever tried to use it is when we got a version of like Final Fantasy 11, and that just never worked. So.
yeah, we've mentioned it. It had some online capabilities, but not something really engaged with, to be honest. And like I quite like it as a single player experience.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, last challenge question for
go.
Sean. Which of these appeared in a Tony Hawk's game as a challenge? Number 1, race a wheelchair user using an engine-powered Segway. Or number 2, grind along the top of the Berlin Wall in a challenge called Berlin Gets Owned.
Number 1.
It was a trick question. They both appeared in Tony Hawk's games.
Yeah. Nice.
And in the same game in Tony Hawk's Underground 2, as far as I know, yeah. So you race a wheelchair user and you grind along the top of the Berlin Wall. I guess if you're doing a level in Berlin, it'd be silly not to play in the Berlin Wall. So fantastic. Just as a little bonus at the end of the episode, since this is the first episode we're recording in 2023, we thought it'd be fun to give you our top games that we played in 2022. So these are games that might not have come out in 2022, but our favorite ones we played. And also our most anticipated games that are coming up this year. So I'll throw it to you first, Sean, for your top 5 games of 2022.
Sure. You want them all?
I want them all, man.
Cool. Well, these are
On a
in
platter.
These are in no particular order.
They should be in a fucking
Should
particular
they be?
order. Yes, they
Oh,
should
for
be
fuck's
5 to 1.
I haven't done that.
Okay,
Do
whatever.
you want me to do it, and while you're doing that, Sean, I can do mine?
Yeah. Okay. Go on. I'll try come up with a quick order.
Okay, so I'll do mine from top 5 to the number 1 game. Top 5 is a game that you know very well, Michael. It was Hollow Knight.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Hollow Knight, the more I thought about it, the more I realized that is just a rock solid game. As I told you before, it's the second best Metroidvania I've ever played.
Yeah, cool.
First, obviously, being Super Metroid. Fourth one, number 4 was a really weird one that I wasn't really expecting, but I thought like I really loved when I played it. It was Gravity Rush 2.
Oh yeah, I couldn't get into it as much as the first one, to be honest. But yeah, cool.
Yeah, if you like Spider-Man games or like the sense of just like that kind of free-flowing motion, absolutely amazing. Number 3 is one from the Metacritic list that we did, and kind of a surprising one that you might not be expecting. Soul Calibur.
Oh wow, well yeah, I do remember you loving that game actually, and
Yes.
it's not a lot to say wrong about it, really. Yeah.
Yeah, it's converted me. I'm a Soul Calibur fan now, and I'm going to start like looking out for the other ones and start playing them, because that was like the first proper Soul Calibur game I'd really played. So yeah, it was absolutely amazing. Number 2 probably come as no surprise. Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. That was
Wait,
just amazing.
I didn't know you liked that game.
A lot of people have a lot of hate for that game, but you know what? Put me hand down now. I liked that game. I
Wow,
fucking did.
You really hide your light under a bushel, Steve. You kept that close to the chest. Wow.
That's it. But the last game, the one that kind of surprised me the most, and it's just because it's me, and Sean will appreciate this as well. My number 1 game this year was Resident Evil 7, hands down.
Oh, sick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice,
I absolutely
man.
loved it.
What a
Absolutely
great fucking game, yeah.
It's so good. It's so good.
Have you
All
played
right, Sean.
have you played Village yet?
Not yet, no. It's I haven't got it yet. I'm going to wait until it goes on sale because I'm a skinflint. Have you got an order for us there, Sean?
Yeah, I've got a rough order, so I mean, haven't really convinced myself on it yet, but I'll go. So starting at number 5, the Callisto Protocol.
Oh wow, Jesus.
Technically, I cleared this in the new year, but
We'll let you away with it.
yeah,
let you away, it's grand.
literally just like finished it a few weeks ago. I think I started playing it at the end of last year. So, it's a very divisive one. I really enjoyed it. I think people, for the most part, a lot of the bad reviews come from people like comparing it too much to Dead Space. Now, it's not a game without its flaws. It's got many of them, but I think it's still a really enjoyable experience. And for like a debut from this studio as well, it's like fantastic.
Fair.
So.
Okay.
Number 4 is Red Dead Redemption 2, which I almost forgot about.
It was on the list as well. Yeah. Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Because I played it on Stadia, which is sadly gone now, R.I.P.
R.I.P.
But that I kind of have my like things about this game as well. But like on a whole, the more I got into it, the story, the more I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I won't forget it anytime soon, even though I just said I kind of forgot.
I think we were all surprised about how much we enjoyed Red Dead 2, given that we sort of ragged on the Rockstar games a bit here. But yeah, Red Dead 2 it's got its moments.
I think it's got like the story in particular, just and like Arthur Morgan, his character, the journey you go on with him, like especially in the later half of the game, is just it's really
not something
good.
you get in many games.
No, it's really good.
It was higher than I expected on my list as well, yeah.
Number 3, Battlefield 2042.
What? Jesus, you're coming in with the controversial takes left and right here. Wow, okay.
Jesus.
Yeah, well, I'm a big Battlefield fan.
You have that tattoo on your arse, yeah.
It's like, it's improved a lot since it launched as well, and I think the developers realised like they got a lot of things wrong. They're trying to change it for the better, and now it's like a pretty enjoyable, like just multiplayer shooter. I would have liked, like, again, a lot of things wrong with it. It would have been nice to have maybe a story campaign, even though like people don't usually care about the story in these games. Once you take it out of it, you definitely notice there's something weird about it.
Yeah, okay.
Because like the story element or the campaign usually influences like the reasons for like the story in the multiplayer. So without that, it's kind of like it feels off. It feels a bit weird.
You need some justification for why you're there.
A little bit, yeah. But anyway, the multiplayer are having a lot of fun with it. They're still adding new things to it every month or whatever, so it's very good. Number 2 is Resident Evil 2 remake.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Finally got around to playing this. 3 is in my downloads, ready to be played as well, but I need a bit of a break from survival horror for a while. But like this is a game I've wanted to play for ages since it came out. and now I have the opportunity, and it is fantastic. It's great. I can't wait for the 4 remake as well. So yeah, loved that. I'm still actually there's a few like extra challenge modes in it that I'm kind of like playing through now and again. So
is the tofu mode in it where you play a big tofu? That was in the original. Did they bring that to the remake?
I think they have some kind of version in the remake. It's really hard. The extra stuff on Resident Evil 2 is really, really hard. Like I've been having a lot of trouble with it. Like so.
Yeah, it's really tough. I've only done like one of those challenge levels, and I was like, how the fuck do I complete this? But, yeah. And then number 1 is Vampire Survivors.
Oh shit, boy! Wow,
yeah.
Sick. Well, that is a deadly game.
It is a deadly game. I probably one you wouldn't expect from me, but I like since you showed it to me, Michael. Like I've sunk so many hours into it, and I didn't think like I knew when I played it at yours originally that I was like, this is really cool. Like I'm getting something from this that I haven't gotten from other games. And
it's really addictive.
It's that I think that's the whole. It's almost like since Hotline Miami, I don't think I felt that replay value or replay feeling in a game. Do you know what I mean? Where you just want to dive straight back in, and yeah, like the more once you learn like the mechanics, the weapon evolutions, and all that, it makes it really interesting. And the other thing, like, there's so much stuff in this game that you don't realize from the onset, like different things to unlock that the game tells you nothing about. You like most of it I've had to research online to be like, because I'm at a point in it now where I feel like I've unlocked a lot of stuff, but I know there's more, and I'm just like, what do I need to do to get to this part or whatever, you know? But yeah, it's sick, and like it throws a lot of curveballs at you and stuff, and yeah, just got a lot of replay
for
value.
such a simple game. Mechanically,
it
adds so many interesting layers, and it's just really fun gameplay loop.
But just one more point, like it's a great game to play like in between, say, like if you're playing a big story campaign game or a multiplayer shooter or something. It's a really almost weirdly relaxing game because like you can just throw it on, like because you're just moving in it. You can just throw it on. You can listen to a podcast in the background if you want, and just like chill out with it. It's really, and now that it's like you can play on your phone and stuff as well, which I haven't done too much of, but the option's there if you want. It's a great one.
One last point on that, just because I'm not sure when we'll ever get to talk about Vampire Survivors again, but I love the fact that towards the end of a level, the sound effects, the blings from each weapon and upgrade and enemy just stack and stack upon it, where it's just like a cacophony of noise happening, but it's still legible and playable. I don't know if that happened by accident or there's like a really good sound editor working on their team, but that's a fucking triumph. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, brilliant game. Michael.
That's my name. Vampire Survivors didn't make my list, just so you
know.
But
really?
I really did look.
I thought it'd be on
there.
Yeah.
It would be very close anyway. So number 5 is a game called Spiritfarer.
Oh yeah, heard that's good.
Fantastic game. I didn't finish it, classic Michael, but it's one of the, you go around and pick up people. You're on this boat. It's very nice animation style, and you're sort of collecting things for them. Very light in mechanics. You got some resource management, sort of farm sim stuff, and some light platforming and sort of adventure-y sort of stuff. But really, it's the aesthetic stuff, so the visual style, the music, the calm sort of atmosphere in the game, and the way it approaches grief. It might be something I delve into more at a future point, but it really, it's such an interesting and profound take on that about letting people go, and really, really surprised me how much I enjoyed it, because I only started playing it because I wanted to play something with my girlfriend, and it had a 2-player mode, but I really, really got into it. Number 4 is The Last of Us Part 2, which I only got around to playing. I played it very early last year.
Oh wow!
I forget about all the haters. Okay, say what you want about the game. It's an amazingly made game. It might be the pinnacle of that Sony, I'm on rails and it's sort of like an interactive story in a lot of ways. But no, saying that, the gameplay mechanics are amazing, but it's sort of the pinnacle of that, like the presentation, the acting. The story does have some faults, not in a ideological way of, I feel intimidated because there's a woman with muscles in it or anything like that. I do think there's a lot of contrivances and coincidences in the story which sort of like make you roll your eyes a little bit. But in terms of presentation and, like you're saying, Red Dead going on a journey with a character, absolutely amazing.
Class.
Number 3 is one that snuck in because I played it right at the end of the year is Pentiment.
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard it's good. Yeah.
Xbox game made by Oblivion, and the writer from Fallout New Vegas, Josh Sawyer is his name. I think he was the director on this game. Amazing. It's been. I follow him on Twitter, and he hates the fact that it's sort of been compared to Disco Elysium in some ways. But it's hard to. It's a very different game, but it's hard to divorce that from it because it's a lot of talking, and a lot of
Narrative-based.
narrative, and solving things. And mechanically, it's pretty light, as in you're not doing a lot of stuff that needs a lot of reflex skills or anything like that, but very well written. Presentation's amazing. It's got this it's set in medieval times, so it's got that sort of flat medieval caricature sort of writing, or illustration style, but it looks amazing and it's so well written, really funny, but simultaneously teaches you a lot about how people lived back then. But not in a preachy educational game way. It has a really gripping story and very well written characters, I should say as well.
Cool.
Number 2 is Elden Ring.
Of course.
Any other year that would have been number 1 on the list. I think you'll know what my number 1 is, but Elden Ring, absolutely amazing. I got very burnt out towards the end. That's the only thing I'd say about it. The game is probably too big, and it's constantly surprising you that there's more of it, really, and it's such high quality. I haven't felt that sort of buzz while playing a big, expensive game for a long time. It deserves all the accolades and success it's gotten. Really, absolutely fantastic. The presentation and the world and the design of the world is. I don't know how they've managed to take what was fun about a Bloodborne or Dark Souls map and expand it out to a whole open world. In fact, you're going along a beach and you think, oh, I'm fighting the enemies on the beach, that's it. And then you find a little cave, and then that cave leads down into a whole other level. And then you come out of the cave and you're back up where you started, but in a new entrance that you didn't even notice. That sort of design that loops back on itself, expanded out into a huge open world, as big as any open world ever made, is absolutely amazing. And number 1, it was on Steve's list, is Hollow Knight.
Wow.
Instantly one of my favorite games of all time. It's definitely in my top 5 list of all time. It was the first Metroidvania I finished. I'm not sure if I had ever played any before. It would have been years ago, but it's got the 2 strands that I absolutely love, in that mechanically it introduces things at a very nice pace. The movement feels great, and it gives you freedom, but not to the point where you feel overwhelmed. It's got a challenge that's balanced absolutely perfectly for me. Really, really loved, and so well designed, the levels, and it's got the aesthetic thing. The music, it's one of my favorite game scores. It's art style. Normally I bounce off anything that looks too cutesy like that, but it really finds a nice balance with any of that, where it lightens the sort of dark atmosphere in the game, but still looks amazing. I talked in our pre-rendered video about how they use multiple layers of backgrounds to give what's a 2D game a lot of depth in the background. Absolutely amazing game. I cannot wait. I'd play it again right now. I wouldn't say that about a lot of games, to be honest.
I must revisit that one actually, because I played a little bit of it, but I've never really delved into it much.
I think
it's a game that gets better the more you play of it. Because I remember when I started it, I was telling Michael this, that I thought the platforming was kind of floaty and I wasn't really enjoying it that much. But the more abilities you unlock, the better it feels to control the guy himself. So I definitely give it another go if you think it'd be worth it, because it gets better the more you play.
Yeah, there's a certain wall that it's different for every player that you might pass, and it really opens up and becomes amazing.
Sick. I'd say Silk Song, is that coming out?
Well,
soon?
that moves us on nicely to
sorry.
no, it's okay. What our most anticipated games of 2023 is, and for me, just to briefly say, Silk Song, if it comes out this year, because I respect Team Cherry are the developers of these games, and they sort of say it's ready when it's ready.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with waiting on that, especially since I only just played Hollow Knight anyway. But yeah, really looking forward to that. And Final Fantasy 16. I wish I knew more about the game and had seen more gameplay footage before now, because it's hard to know what shape it will take. But that's sort of the exciting thing about a Final Fantasy game, as in you'll never get like just a sequel that does the same thing, really.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that.
Sick. My most anticipated would have to be Stalker 2.
I recently saw some new screenshots from it, and it looks absolutely amazing.
Unbelievable, yeah. Don't know when it's going to come out yet, because they're obviously in a tricky situation developing it in a war zone at the moment, which is crazy. But I think they're hoping to get it out by the end of the year, so we'll see. Also really looking forward to playing Atomic Heart. That's coming out next month, actually, straight into Game Pass. So that'll be an interesting one. It looks like, the more I see of it, the more interesting it looks. At first I thought it was like maybe kind of a BioShock clone, but I think it has its own identity and some interesting elements to it. So, and yeah, there's a bunch more games that I'm looking forward to this year, but I won't bog you down. Steve?
I mean, I'm kind of quite similar to yourself, Michael. This 2023 kind of feels like the year of Final Fantasy. So, like, naturally, 16, I'm looking forward to. I wouldn't go so far as to say, like, I think it's going to be great, because I've got issues with all the trailers coming out. But like you said, part of the excitement is not really knowing, because, like, every game is always so different. You never really know what you're going to get until you get it. So, I'll be interested to see how it goes. Battle system looks fun, though. It looks like they're taking a lot of inspiration from, like, Souls-like games and stuff like that. So, and, you know, we might see the Final Fantasy 7 remake part 2 come out as well. That'd be exciting.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe. And even as well as that, like another game, little indie, not indie, but a smaller one, is like the Theatrhythm music game. That was one of my favorite games on the 3DS. And I'm really looking forward to playing that again, because the music in Final Fantasy is so good that I just absolutely love to play that. But of course, there is one more game that hasn't been announced yet, but I do think there's always the possibility that a remake of the greatest game ever made might happen.
Say. Do it.
Rugrats Search for Reptar, the 1998 PlayStation 1 classic, and I'm just hoping someday it will come. Yeah, see, I'm not just a one-trick pony. There's other games I like too.
The
Shove that up
fans
your
have
arse.
been clamoring for that game. The absolute, like, the Twitters and the YouTubers just fucking, when's Rugrats coming out, you know?
Rugrats.
Who develops that, Steve? Or who develops the original? Just curious.
well,
I think it was co-developed with Naughty Dog and From Software.
Yeah,
and
I think
Neversoft. Fucking skateboarding.
Hironobu Sakaguchi had a hand in it, obviously, as well. Like, you know, because like Rugrats, Super Mario, that whole, like, you know, comparison. I have actually no idea who. Oh, THQ made it. There you go.
Yeah, I don't think they
They
exist
published
anymore.
it though, did they? Who actually was the developer? Who did the nitty gritty?
Who was the level designer on Rugrats?
Someone called N Space.
That's a name that rings out in the game industry, all right.
Did they also did Duke Nukem Time to Kill. There
I
you go.
loved that game when I was a kid. Genuinely.
And Duke Nukem Land of the Babes.
Classic.
Oh yeah, that just reminded me of apparently, you know, the bit of a tangent, but the Prince of Persia remake, that I think that has passed Duke Nukem forever as the longest game in development.
No way.
Yeah.
Really? It doesn't seem that
Really?
long.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah.
that's been in development for years, I think. But it was only announced
Shit.
then.
I remember they released a trailer and everyone was like, this looks crap. So they went back and they scrapped a load of it.
And
anyway.
now it's in limbo because I think they've like restarted it or something. I don't
Wow.
know. But it's
Okay.
crazy, yeah. Anyway,
On that note, thank you everyone for joining us, listening to that Tony Hawk's 3 review and just us blabbering about our favourite games. I'm going to pass it to Steve, and he is going to tell us what the next game we're going to be covering is.
The next game that we are going to be covering is the GameCube classic Metroid Prime.
No, it isn't.
no, it's not.
It isn't. You just skipped out like one
Oh shit,
game.
is it?
Yeah.
Damn, sorry, I was sure that was what it was. I didn't look at it. Okay, cancel what I just said. Hang on. Bear with me 1 second. Fuck, what is
I
it?
can just
Oh
tell
shit, okay. No, it's okay. The next game that we're going to be playing is the N64 classic Perfect Dark.
Class.
which I've
And
never
I
played
will
before.
play this one because I've got it downloaded on my Xbox.
Okay, Sean, you
I'll
hear
believe it when I
I
see
have an
it.
Xbox.
Sean has promised everyone that he's going to play the shit out of Perfect Dark. Amazing.
Sorry, lads. I was completely wrong about what I said. Prince of Persia. Fuck's sake. Beyond Good and Evil.
I was going to correct you, but I
thank
didn't.
you, yeah.
I didn't want to spray.
What a
it back.
horrible mistake!
I don't want to put out
Imagine
lies
making
to
such
our
an
list.
obvious mistake on
Fuck
the
off.
podcast.
I don't want to put out lies to our listeners.
I'd like to end
do.
on a fuck off between our podcasters.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry,
okay.
lads. As you can tell, I do loads of research for this. Anyway.
Okay, we love you all. Bye bye.
Bye.
Look.